Good evening. In tonight's lesson, you are going to learn how to find the absolute value. So let's just learn some vocab first. For absolute value, it is the distance between a number and 0 on the number line. The absolute value of a number is written as with two straight vertical bars and then the number in the middle. So for example, if you're looking at this one, this says the absolute value of -2. Those two bars tell you that they want you to find the absolute value, and the absolute value is 2. And then this one says, and the absolute value of 2 is +2. So let's look at that on a graph. So what it says is it's the distance between a number and 0. So if I were to plot 2 and -2 on my graph, it says what's the absolute value of -2? Well, really what that's really asking is, well, how far is it away from 0? Well, it's 1 hop, so it's 2 hops away from 0, so the absolute value is 2. And this one is saying the absolute value of 2, so that's saying how many hops from 0? So there's 1 and 2. So they are both 2 hops away from 0, so their absolute value is the same. Now absolute value is always going to be positive, because if you think about it, if you're driving in a car and I'm driving forward and then I have to reverse, I still am going a positive distance. It doesn't make any sense for us to have a negative distance. Distance always has to be positive, and that's what absolute value is. It's the distance between a number and 0. So let's look at our first couple examples. It says, well, what's the absolute value of 3? Well, if I go to my number line that you all should have, I'm at 3. Well, how far away is 3 from 0? 1, 2, 3. So my absolute value is 3. -2.5. Well, if I go to -2.5, which is right in between -2 and -3, what's the absolute value? Well, here's a half. 1, 2. So the absolute value is 2.5. Let's look at -10. -10 doesn't quite fit on my graph, but here I'm -10, -9, and that's 7. So here's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 hops away from 0. 8.3. Once again, it's off my graph a little bit, but so let's say here would be 8. 8.3 is here. So to get back to 8, it's 0.3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 8.3 hops away from 0. Okay, so take a moment, pause it, find the absolute value of those 6 questions. Okay, welcome back. So now we're down to example 2, and we're comparing values with less than or greater than. So the first thing is I have to find what value it is. So 2 is already done for us. So I'm just going to put 2 right here. Well, now I need to know, well, what's the absolute value of -5? So in order for me to compare it with 2, I can't have the absolute value bars there. So I'm going to go to -5. To find the absolute value, we count how many times it is away from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of -5 is 5. So then you say, okay, well, 2 is what than 5? And 2, further left on the number line, is less than 5. I'm looking at letter B. We have the absolute value of -10 and 4. Well, we've already found the absolute value of -10 up top. So remember, we are off to the left of our number line to -10, and we have to take 10 hops to get into 0. So the absolute value of -10 is 10, and 4 is already 4. So now I say 10 is greater than 4. Okay, looking at C. It's really easy for you to go, oh, well, those are equal to each other, because you see a -7 and you see a -7. Well, first off, don't forget, we have to get rid of those absolute value bars. So -7 stays -7. Well, then what's the absolute value of -7? Well, you ask yourself, how far away is it from 0? Well, I have -7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hops away. So the absolute value of negative 7 is 7. And now you say, well, I have a negative and a positive. Remember what we talked about in class? Positives are always bigger, so negative 7 is less than 7. Okay, take a moment, try 1, 2, 3, and 4 here on your own, and then come back and see me. All right, we are down to our last example, the real life application problem. So this one takes a little bit of reading. It says, the table shows the elevations of several animals. And remember, elevation is something that we've talked about, that we can go up or we can go down because we've got that sea level. So remember, we've talked about some water, and if you go up a mountain, you're going up above sea level, or if you're swimming down into the water, you're going below sea level. So this is where these animals like to hang out. So the first question is, which animal is the deepest? Well, being that I'm going up and down with my mountain and my underneath my water, I'm going to use a vertical number line just to illustrate what this looks like. So sea level is at 0. That is where sea level is. So then let's graph some of our animals here. Well, I have some pretty big numbers, so I'm going to maybe count up by tens. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. And then I'm going to do the opposite in the negatives, below the water. Negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, and negative 60. So this is just an illustration of all of my different elevations. So now let's look at the shark. The shark is at negative 4. So he is, and I'm going to write my negatives clearer. I kind of wrote them right next to the mar. So these are all my negative numbers. So my shark is negative 4. So he is above negative 10, and I'm going to put my shark about right there. There's my shark. Okay, my sea lion's at 5, so he is almost the same distance away from 0. That's my sea lion. Okay, and my seagull is up at 56, so way up top here in between 50 and 60. That's my seagull, which makes sense because he's a bird. My shrimp is at negative 65, so he's way down here past my negative 60. And my turtle, negative 22. So here's negative 20, so he's right past negative 20. That's my turtle. And a lot of you can probably visualize this without writing the number line, but let's just do this anyways. So it says, which animal is the deepest? Well, looking at this picture, I can easily see that if this is the water, my shrimp is the deepest because he's way down here underwater. Okay, which corresponds, because this is the biggest negative number, which means that's the smallest number. So the deepest animal is my shrimp. Okay, and then it says, is the shark or the lion closer to sea level? Well, that's asking for distance. So if it's asking for distance, I need to use absolute value. So I'm going to have to use some absolute value here to find out how far away is the shark away from 0 and how far away is the sea lion away from 0. So if I'm looking here, my sea lion, he is at 5. So his distance from 0, well, the absolute value is 5, is 5. He is 5 hops from 0. And then I'm looking at my shark. He is at negative 4. So I need to find out, well, what's his distance from 0? Well, the absolute value of negative 4 is just 4. So the question is the shark or the sea lion closer to sea level? Well, looking at 5 and 4, which one is closest to 0? Well, if you get a little confused on that, you just go to your number line and you go, well, here's 5 and here's 4. 4 is closest to 0. So he is going to be closest to sea level. So that is our shark. Is closest to sea level. Okay, so what I want you to do is take a moment, look this over, reflect on it a little bit, and then answer the on your own questions 1 and 2. You're still using this table over here. And then remember at the bottom, ask me a question, ask a neighbor a question, put something down here that shows me you reflected on this lesson a little bit. Good luck, and I will see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.